Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm Angela Wilkinson, attraction coach and founder of The Goddess Next Door. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. Mike Iamele is an international writer, business coach, clinical herbalist, and author of the upcoming book, Enough Already. Mike Iamele is an international writer, business coach, clinical herbalist, and the author of the book Enough Already, Create Success on Your Own Terms. Mike helps healing entrepreneurs who feel stuck turn their life purpose into a sustainable business so they can make money for just being themselves. As a regular contributor to national publications, as well as through his popular weekday success blog, Mike has encouraged millions of people to reject society's blanket definition and create success for themselves. But before I talk with Mike today, I'm super excited to share that Spark Society is now officially open. Spark Society is the place to be to ignite your own brilliance and let it shine. Join today and you'll get immediate access to a collection of exclusive gifts from Awakened Goddess Show guests, plus a private community to connect with other awakened goddesses to share insights and ideas. Visit bit.ly, that's bit.ly/Spark Society for more information and to join today. See you in the society. Welcome, Mike, to the Awakened Goddess Show. I am really happy to have you with me today to talk about creating success on your own terms. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So I want to tell the listeners, just to let them know, we hang out online all the time together in, Facebook and just everywhere online. So we have like this internet friendship. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to bring to the listeners your new book. And so we're going to talk about that today. It's called Enough Already. So let's start with how do you define success?
Okay, I knew this question was coming because I feel like I have to have a good answer for this one. Because if I don't, people are going to be like, well, you wrote that book. But so for me, success is really about meaningful impact. I feel like I want to have a meaningful impact in the world. I feel like I want to heal myself. My own self-healing is really a part of my own success. Connection with friends and family is certainly hugely important for me. And then just balance. I want to feel really balanced in all aspects of my life. Mm-hmm. I want, to exercise and eat healthy, but also put work out to the world. So, you'll notice in that I don't really talk much about money or fame, and there's no judgment if that is your definition. Certainly we can all create whatever we want, but, I have lived a life where, it was based on money and fame and prestige and all that great stuff, and it ended up not being the life that I wanted. So it's really interesting to have these new metrics because I find myself successful when maybe somebody else wouldn't necessarily think of me that way, and it's great.
Well, isn't it fascinating how it's like kind of like the grass is greener on the other side? It's like I think we all kind of a lot of times come out of the gate when we're younger thinking, oh gosh, money is like the thing we want to achieve in terms of success. But then, when you have a certain level of financial success and then you don't have the other aspects, maybe your health or the relationships, or, you don't have peace of mind, it really gives you a whole new perspective. And it sounds like that's something you really went through.
Oh, totally. I mean, I went through, the health crisis. I totally had to redefine relationships because I'm now actually dating my boyfriend, and neither of us had been with men before. We had only been with women, and weren't particularly interested in men. So it was through my kind of health crisis that we found each other and realized that maybe something more was there. So it's really interesting that I have, done the conventional success thing, and it just wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm sure there's a story behind the title, Enough Already. So
There's a story. I actually love this because people say there's a story, but I actually have a story.
Well, yeah.
So my friend Isabel is totally kind of the poster child, champion of this book. She gave up her career. She moved to Santa Fe with her boyfriend, and they decided to start a bakery and an art gallery. And so they went out there, and they didn't have much money. And he's an artist, so he started a Kickstarter to get some money for some of his art. And I gave them $50 and didn't really think anything of it. Well, about 6 months later, I was on the phone with my publisher, and she said, "So do you have a title yet?" And the title, I opened up a package I got in the mail, and it said, "Enough Already." Oh. It's this beautiful painting that he made for me. And I thought, oh my God, yes, this is it. And right on the spot, I just said those words out loud to her because I thought, it's a double entendre. One, enough already. I am so fed up with corporate America, shoving this definition of success down my throat. I'm fed up with buying into someone else's definition and really want to create my own life. Mm-hmm. But also, it's enough already. I'm enough already to create the life that I want. And that's what I really wanted to communicate in this book. So it was perfect synchronicity.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because, really, isn't that one of the things that so many people struggle with is that idea that we're not enough. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, wow, that's really cool. Okay, so you gave up a really high-powered public relations career to create your own version of love, success, and happiness. So I want to kind of delve in deeper into this because I know that that's where, you certainly got a lot of your inspiration for your book. Mm-hmm. So you had a health crisis, and so it sounds like that was the ultimate turning point. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah. And so can you kind of share what happened?
Yeah, of course. So basically, my story is that I was really one of those young, ambitious, perfectionist people. And I did a lot of things really young. I started my PR agency at age 22 with a bunch of executives from a big agency. And by the time I was 24, I was burnt out. I was working long hours. I was hard partying, drinking like crazy, staying out really late. And I woke up one day vomiting blood. And it didn't stop for months. And it was really kind of a scary situation. I was hospitalized. I was hooked up to IV. And nobody knew what was wrong with me. So at the time, my roommate was a friend of mine that we had been friends for about 7 or 8 years. And he was taking care of me because he was the only one around. And through this process of him taking care of me for about 2 months, it became apparent that maybe we were falling in love. And there was no, sexual or physical connection, but there was a emotional one. Mm-hmm. And we explored that. And as this was happening, I started exploring my spiritual side and also really alternative health. I started going to acupuncture and Reiki and reflexology and all of this stuff to heal myself. And a few months later, I was now in a relationship, or at least figuring out a relationship with a man. I was kind of the spiritual hippie, trying all this alternative therapies. I had joined herbalism, and I was still working in public relations. And I thought, okay, something's not adding up here. I feel more like myself doing these things, but yet I'm still attaching myself to this definition of success that doesn't seem to match with who I am. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up redefining what success meant to me, really, and giving up all of that career so that I could now move into a space that did feel successful to me. It really made me feel successful and happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, gosh, there's so many questions that come to mind.
Shoot, throw them at me.
I know. Okay, so what I'm curious about with your book, what is kind of like the underlying, like the theme that goes through the whole book?
Yeah, so the theme of the book is really just empowerment. You are good enough and you are really empowered to create the life that you want. And it doesn't necessarily have to look the way you think it is. And I know, logically or intellectually that makes sense, but it's shocking how many times a day we fall into that trap of trying to do it the way someone else is. Mm-hmm. I'm in a lot of business groups online, and people constantly think, well, I've got to hit the 6-figure mark. That is success. And maybe, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone who does feel that, But maybe that's not right for you. And it's just so easy to fall into these traps. We live in a world where social media, TV 24/7, and we get all of these messages and we feel like we need to buy into them. And that may not necessarily be true for us. Mm-hmm. So, I think the overall theme is just stay authentic to yourself, do your thing. And the book is kind of a 12-step guide, really a hero's journey style guide, to help you create that and figure out what success means to you and then how to achieve it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, and I do this too, but it's like talking about authenticity. Oh, just be our authentic selves. Mm-hmm. And
totally.
It's like we know, because we're woo-woo, we know what we're talking about, but it's such an esoteric thing. And I think that, at least the way I've kind of used it, I kind of throw it out there as if it's like this easy thing to do. But then when it comes time to putting your money where your mouth is and you're actually walking your talk, it's not quite that easy, right?
Never. Yeah. Well, you actually bring up such a great point, because my first step is all about defining success for yourself, but the second step is really using fear as a compass. And I think you really point to that it's hard and it's scary, and a lot of times we're not necessarily conscious of when we're falling into our old patterns. Mm-hmm. So what we talk about in the book is that whatever you're most afraid of is actually the next hurdle you need to overcome to become successful. And that's because our fears are really tied up with our limiting beliefs and mm-hmm. our beliefs of when we're not safe. Mm-hmm. And so when we go after them, even if we fail, if we, totally flop in the face of our fear, we still prove that we're safe in that situation. And we open our circle, we open our fishbowl just a little bit so that we can continue achieving success. And I love to say this, that fear is actually really important to you. If it didn't matter to you, maybe it would be annoyance, or it would be like nervousness, but fear is a really strong emotion. Yeah. So that's telling you that you really care a lot about whatever is standing in your way, and that will help you get to success if you just kind of go after it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to throw myself under the bus.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, so, I don't know how many years ago, I was getting kind of like this vision of me standing on a stage in front of lots and lots of women speaking, right? And that was always something I was afraid of. Mm-hmm. I mean, I do have a skill at speaking to people when I kind of get past that first hurdle. And, quite frankly, this show was not something I ever planned to do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this show is just maybe the next step towards that. So what I'm wondering is because frankly, I don't feel, I'm not even sure what I would be speaking to women about, if I were on stage. So I'm wondering, this progression here, this speaking thing that I kind of keep avoiding, it sounds like that is where I have to just jump in.
It sounds like, that's something you're terrified of and something that sounds really important to you. So, and it doesn't really matter how we do it, it's more of the energy behind it. So if you go to Toastmasters, if you jump on stage at like a PTA meeting, it really doesn't necessarily matter. It's more about overcoming that fear and letting you know that you are safe. And I always say, when we look at accomplish our fears, we look the beast in the eye and we see our own reflection, because our reflection is always in our fears, because all fears are our body telling us we're not safe in this situation. There's some belief that we are not safe. And that's really a limiting belief that's stopping us from getting successful. So yeah, I would encourage you, go up there on stage any way you can, even if it's only like 10 people, just go do it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to go back to what you just said about facing the reflection coming back to you. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, any fear that we have is never outside of us. Fears are subjective. And I think this is something that people, like, we use the word courageous a little bit loosely. We're like, oh, you're courageous if you can, start your own company or speak on stage or wear booty shorts in public. But that's not necessarily true. Maybe that's courageous to some people, but not necessarily everyone. Some people are much more comfortable with their bodies. Some people are much more comfortable with public speaking. So courage really is you overcoming your own fears, what you're afraid of. And that means that all of our fears are just subjective. They're a belief we have, not a belief that someone else has. So just like we can't adopt someone else's definition of success, I don't think we can adopt someone else's definition of fear. We really need to check into, I'm terrified of parallel parking. No. I'll admit it. That's something I'm terrified of in Boston. I am. And a lot of people are like, Mike, you can start a company, you can write books, you can get on stage. I cannot parallel park. I freak out when cars honk at me. It's just something I freak out about. So there's a belief in me that I'm not safe in that situation, whereas in other situations, I do believe I'm safe. And so, inherent in success is really this idea of constant growth. If we target our fears, if we overcome these limiting beliefs, we are constantly growing to who we are. And that's kind of our authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like there's a piece in there about alignment. And I think, and I think alignment is, you can feel like you're on the right path, but what's becoming more and more clear to me is there are slight shifts that can change the trajectory that make you more in alignment with what you're to be doing, like maybe your purpose.
Totally. Well, I mean, I use the word success. It's my word, but we can call it life purpose. We can call it really anything we want. And absolutely, I think it's about clarity, and then it's about alignment, and it's about courage. So, first of all, it's figuring out what you want. Clarity around what is alignment to you. What feels good to you? What is your life purpose? What defines the life you want to lead? And then it's about really aligning yourself with that path. And in every situation, we only have one decision. Is it going to bring us closer to our path or away from it? And that's really what it is. I keep I have words that define my success, and I keep them on my computer. And anytime someone, a new client calls me, or I ask to do a webinar or a speaking gig, I look at my words. And is it bringing me closer to those or away from them? And that's really what it is. If fear is holding us back, then that's kind of a crap reason. We can move past that one. But if it really isn't bringing us to our words, then that's a legitimate reason to turn it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you can really apply that to really anything in your life, like the people you spend time with, because there are people that make us feel better, and there are people that make us feel worse. And so
totally. Yeah. And it's so funny. I love talking about this. In the last chapter, I'm thinking, I have my own definition of success, and I really buy into it, but I'm writing a book on success, right? Mm-hmm. And so the whole time I'm like, oh my God, am I really successful enough to be writing this book? Right. And of course I need a taste of my own medicine. And then there's this great moment. I'm on the last chapter. I'm about to write it, and I don't feel successful. So I know I need to get up. I need to really get myself back in alignment. I put down the computer. I get up, and I just start dancing. And I dance around my living room, and I love dancing. So it's the best way to get back in alignment. Yeah. And I have this beautiful picture window where I can see the skyline of Boston. So I'm dancing around. I look out my window, and I just start laughing uncontrollably. And I think, oh my God, I'm dancing in the middle of the afternoon in my dream apartment writing a book about success. How much better could my life be? Yeah. And then, I kid you not, at that very moment, my boyfriend Garrett comes in the door because he came home early from work, and he said, "Why are you laughing?" And I said, "Because I'm successful." Mm-hmm. He said, "Of course you are. It's just about time you realized it." Aww. And that's how I start the last chapter of the book. But it really kind of speaks to that for me. When we are in alignment, when we realize just how amazing life can be living it on our own terms, we don't need other people's definitions. We don't need to compare. We don't need to feel jealous. We can just live in our truth, and that's enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is enough.
And that's the book.
That's enough right. Already. Enough already. Okay, so we hang out with a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs, and I know that you have probably seen some themes with spiritual entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general. And I'm wondering what you see as the most common challenges when it comes to creating success for themselves.
I mean, this one's probably not surprising, but not feeling good enough is certainly not feeling worthy. That comes up a lot for people. And then there's also this permission piece, which is somewhat related, but also different. People want to know, well, I need to be told I'm a good writer to write a book, or I need people to tell me I'm good enough to write a book, or, to even do a podcast. I need people to tell me I'm a great host, and that's not necessarily true. If we're going to create the lives we want, we need to just give ourselves permission. Today, we can do it. And maybe it's not going to be, the $1 million book deal. Maybe you self-publish. Or maybe, you get a Groupon massage instead of going to the fancy spa. But you can absolutely live the life that you want. The only person who can give you permission is yourself. So I think, especially spiritual entrepreneurs, there's this idea that they really need to wait for that outside validation before they can take action.
Yeah, and really, isn't it true that you have to have that within yourself first before the world can reflect it to you?
Absolutely. I mean, law of attraction, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a long, it's taken me a long time to figure that one out.
Believe me, I've had my struggle. I mean, you can only write a book about something if you've struggled immensely with it. So yeah. I am no saint. I've been there.
I know, Mike. How come you didn't write this like 20 years ago? Of course, I don't know how old you would have been then, but...
Yeah, well, 7, okay?
Yeah. So... Yeah, you're still so young. Okay, so you talked about the first couple steps. So how about you just kind of highlight each of the steps for us?
Yeah, great. Okay, so the first is really about defining it for yourself and knowing what the roadmap is going to look like so we can follow it. The second is using fear as a compass. The third is really about identifying your strengths and your weaknesses. And I think that we have this issue where we see things as strengths or as weaknesses, but the truth is it's contextual. Mm-hmm. In one instance, being sensitive is a weakness, and another, it's a real strength. So it's more about aligning yourself with the context that plays to your strengths and recognizing that your greatest weaknesses are actually a strength, just channeled the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Step 4 is really about using passion as a torch. When you're in those dark places and you don't know where to go, being able to follow your passion. Okay. Gosh, you're making me think of them.
Well, let's pause there. Okay. How do you define, how does one know if they're passionate? Okay, so I guess what's coming to mind are, there's things that I'm putting out there, and sometimes I kind of get disconnected from feeling passionate about something because, you are working at putting something out there. It takes a lot of energy, and you kind of, do you know what I'm getting at?
Absolutely, yeah, of course. And I certainly fall into this too. I'm human. I think it's a few things. One, you have to look at your definition of success, and even if you, are a little burnt out, but you really want to get this out there, if it's working towards that, then absolutely stick with it. The other thing I like to say is passion. We're all talking about finding ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to know, how do you find yourself?
Yeah.
And I always say you find yourself when you lose yourself. We are always in our heads. We are always thinking so much, we can't find ourselves. It's the things we lose ourselves in. When time flies by, when we're so just excited to do something, when it feels like it flows out of us, that's really what passion feels like. It's, I like to say, I'm from half Italian, half Jewish family. There was a lot of plate throwing in my house. I know a lot about passion.
Yeah.
And passion just consumes you. It overcomes you. It's something that channels directly through you, and it makes you get out of the way. It makes you really let it flow through you. And I think, when you see someone screaming and throwing things, that they're not in their mental state. They're just letting it come through. And that's what passion really feels like.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's like that fire to it.
Yes, there's a fire, exactly. I love that metaphor of passion, being your kind of internal fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can think of a few things I'm passionate about now. Okay, but moving on to step 5.
Yes, so step number 5 is about failure and really repositioning the way we look at failure. At this point in the journey, we know what we're passionate about, but it doesn't always succeed, quote unquote, the way we think it is. And really, failure is the only way that we're going to learn and grow. We don't fix what isn't broken, of course. So, we can call it failure, but it's really just a lesson. And I say in this chapter, a loser calls it failing, but a hero calls it learning. It's about learning and adapting and changing. And for us entrepreneurs, maybe that means getting a bridge job. Maybe it means, hiring somebody to watch your kids. There's a lot of ways that we need to renegotiate our definition of success at this stage, because it might not necessarily work the way we think it is, and that's okay. We're learning and we're growing.
Okay, so I have a question about that before you get to the next step. So this has been kind of like a fine-tuning, I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but when you're doing something and it seems like a struggle, and you're not sure if you're supposed to continue, if that's truly the right path, or if it's a sign that you need to shift and do something else. Discernment, that was the word I was looking for.
Discernment. That's a really good question. And it's tough. Definitely you have to look at your definition of success. But the thing is, success or life purpose can come in many containers. So oftentimes we just have the wrong container for what we're trying to create. We want to do one-on-one coaching, and actually a course would be the right container for it. Or it would be better off in a partnership or in-person coaching. So, letting passion lead the way, letting success guide you, but then also being open to finding new containers. Because, if we're passionate and if we know this is success to us, then we're on the right path. However, if it's not working, we may need to tweak things. And I think that's one thing that a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs get hang-ups on. It's not working the way they thought they would, so they just want to give up. It's like, well, wait a minute, hold on, maybe this is better conveyed as group coaching than it is one-on-one. And so being flexible, I think that's one thing. We get on the success path, we just want to do it, and we forget that we have to be flexible. It's part of life, it's adapting and rolling with the punches.
Yeah, because it's like, I think that I get what the thought process is. It's like, gosh, I feel like I feel really passionate about it. I want to help people, and so I'm thinking I want to do one-on-one coaching, and so this is what I'm attempting to do, and it's like, how come it's not working? It should come easier, and then like you say, it might be a shift.
Totally. And I think the other thing, that we're learning as we're failing is about our own blocks. A lot of times we have these blocks that are holding us back because when we are in alignment, things just flow. We know that, right? So if it's not flowing, it is an opportunity for learning in a variety of ways. Learning about ourselves, learning about our blocks, learning about business, learning about the containers that we're taking. So I think really reframing failure, and I say this in the chapter, and I really like it, that, you can reframe the word failure with the word adapting. That's all you need to say. If somebody comes up to you and says, how's your business going? You say, oh, great, I'm adapting my business model to better meet the needs of my audience. There you go. That's all it is. You didn't fail. You're just shifting it.
That's right. You're pivoting.
So we go through that in the book, how to change that and really reframe it in your mind, because that's how you turn it into a lesson.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So what's the next step?
So next step is 6, which is really, I call it, this might be your adventure, but it's not all about you. And I think this is a huge lesson for us entrepreneurs. We have this amazing ability to make everything all about us.
Yes.
We're on stage. We want to, give our message to our audience. And all we're thinking about the whole time is, am I stuttering? Am I shaking? Do I sound awkward? It has nothing to do with us. And the bottom line is, if we want to be successful, we just have to make sure that people get benefit. It doesn't matter how we look. It doesn't matter how we feel. It doesn't matter if our website's the most gorgeous or if we have the most followers on our list or Facebook. None of it matters.
Yeah.
All that really matters is that we are serving the people we say we're going to serve. And so getting out of our own way is a huge obstacle for a lot of us spiritual entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's funny how we can be so spiritual, yet so egoic.
Totally. And we're human, so there's no judgment around that.
Yeah.
It's really just learning and growing and recognizing that this is our adventure, but we're here to serve somebody else. And so get out of the way and just let it flow through you.
Yeah.
And I have this really amazing story that I talk about in that chapter, actually, now that I'm thinking. So my sister's husband is a EMT, and he was, listening to his dispatcher one day, and he heard his parents' address on it. So he freaked out, understandably. He drove over there. He, got out of the car. He got the defibrillators. His dad was blue in the face, dead with no pulse, and he used the defibrillators on him and brought him back to life. And when the paramedics got there, they said, you absolutely saved, his life. And he realized, he didn't think about if he showered. He didn't think about how he parked. He didn't think about, what he said. He just did it. And I think that really speaks to, the good enough piece. We're all afraid of being good enough, but when the moment is there, when we're in an emergency, we just do it, and it always comes through us because, we access it when we need it. So I think we put on all these layers of fear and insecurity, and we just got to get out of our own way. It's not about us in the first place. It's about them. Just let it come through us.
Yeah, that's so true. Because, it's like, it isn't about us.
Exactly.
I believe that, it's kind of like athletes, professional athletes and entertainers and us as coaches, we're just channeling, we're the channel for source to work through us.
Totally.
And it's like we have to create that space for that to come through. And the more space we can create, the more we can step out of the way, the more of service and impactful we will be.
Yes. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Step 7. So step 7 is a big one for a lot of us. Let stress be your mentor. And now I know stress is huge on all of us. We've all got stress, and stress is really a sign of growth because we're hitting our boundaries. Although there's some really unnecessary stress in our lives. And so I think stress can teach us lessons if we are willing to listen. And I talk about productive stress, which is really, we are in an emergency situation. We're fueled, our muscles tighten, we're ready to go, we're ready to do our stuff. But then, we're late for a meeting and we're stuck in traffic. And that's not really productive stress. Mm-hmm. And so if it is productive, certainly use it because it's a survival instinct. 10 million years ago, we needed to use this energy. So today, we don't have these kind of predators chasing us anymore, but we do have situations where we need to use energy. And that's what stress is about. The unproductive stress is teaching us a lesson. It's telling us where we're not necessarily, we have maybe limiting beliefs, we have unrealistic expectations, we're doing something that's just not working for us. Mm-hmm. And so, just like failure can teach us lessons, stress especially can teach us lessons of where we want to focus our energy and where we want to just dump the dead weight because, a lot of our lives have unnecessary stress. And that's really, if it's not productive, we need to look and say, is this really helping me? If not, then what can I dump here?
Yeah. Well, I think it's also a sign that you're not in the flow as much as you could be. Like maybe
absolutely,
you're
and that's I think right. It being your mentor. Mm-hmm. If you're constantly stressed when you look at your website, something's wrong with your website. If you're constantly stressed when you're working with clients, it's not the right client. So stress is teaching you all the time about alignment. It's just instead of listening and making changes, we end up staying stuck in it because it's comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something I'm learning is that I have to pay more attention to my feelings. And feelings, I'm thinking, just the piece of the intuition. Because, I get in my mind, this is what I want to create, and I just go for it. But then, I think that there are bodies and things around us are communicating to us in subtle ways that, at least for myself, I have tended to not pay attention to. So I imagine other people do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all do. And I think that's exactly what this chapter is about, is really tuning into your body and noticing how stress communicates. Mm-hmm. And I talk about situations where, if your stomach tightens every time you are under a deadline and you're really stressed, and then your stomach tightens when you are at a networking event, it's your body's telling you the same message. So look at, do I feel stressed here? Am I putting pressure on myself to be good at this networking? Mm-hmm. And that will just help you communicate even better and how to be successful.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Number 8. I love this one. It's a long trek. Lighten your load. It's all about this huge misconception that successful people never quit a day in their lives. We see this on posters in every office, everywhere. Successful people are not quitters. And that's just not true. I know successful people who have quit alcohol to go on to be really successful. I know successful people who have dumped toxic friends, who have let go of limiting beliefs. So quitting is a huge part of the journey. Mm-hmm. Like I say, we're trying to fly here. We can't carry that excess baggage. So we need to just let it go so we can go up. And it's really important at this stage to recognize what is holding you back, what isn't in alignment with your definition of success, and then quit it, let it go so that you can get to that next level. And the coolest thing here is that oftentimes we don't even need to do anything else. We let go and immediately we're in alignment and we soar. It's really amazing to watch.
Yeah, so true. It's like we get so much energy wrapped up in things that really are out of alignment for us. And I think this especially shows up in relationships. The toxicity of the people that we surround ourselves with because, maybe it's comfortable or they're reinforcing those limiting beliefs that we have inside. And so, I think, again, discernment in figuring out, gosh, this person really makes me feel like crap. So, and maybe
Absolutely.
it's time for a heave ho.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. So step 9 is, learn how to enjoy every moment. And this is a big one because, we're spiritual seekers. We want to grow, 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 grow. And we really miss out on the moments that success isn't each and every moment. Mm-hmm. That we really need to recognize the success we're experiencing right now. Because a huge part of our culture and the reason that it's called enough already is that it is enough. We have enough right now to feel successful if we want to. Mm-hmm. But instead we focus on what isn't there. And we don't take the time to look at our sunset, to, spend time with a loved one, to just celebrate a mini win. Whatever we want, just celebrate every step of the way, because that's how we become successful. Mm-hmm. We are not successful accomplishment to accomplishment. We're successful moment to moment. And in each moment, we can choose to be successful.
I like that. Yeah, because like you say, there's just so much to appreciate and savor in that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Step 10. You can't please everyone, so stop trying. Yeah. And this is, I know. This is a big one for all of us. So people pleasers, us spiritual entrepreneurs, we are people pleasers. We really want to change the world and help people out. And it's great, but sometimes it's to a fault because we end up letting people define success for us. And I think that's a case where we lose sight of our vision of success. We've got it, we're ready to do it. And then one of our clients just wants to have a call on the weekend. And we think, ooh, well, we really love that client, so can we make an exception? Yeah. And, then we fall into the trap that we always fall into. So it's really about just letting go of other people's expectations and recognizing that other people are not everybody's going to love you. Not everybody's going to love everything you do, and that's good. That's okay. Mm-hmm. That's why we have so many different perspectives here on Earth right now. And also this idea of repelling your way to success. I don't know if you're like me, but whenever somebody unlikes my Facebook page, I get so upset. I'm like, why? I'm putting up this great content. And what I've realized is they were not the right fit. And if they didn't love my content, they were never going to love working with me. Mm-hmm. And so it was really great to, I say that when I was writing really meaningful, authentic content, I was getting unsubscribes in droves, way more unsubscribes than ever subscriptions. But the interesting thing was that people were hiring me more than ever before. Mm-hmm. And what I realized is that when you are authentic, it causes people to take action, whether that means, to hire and work with you more or to leave you. But repelling is a good thing. Mm-hmm. You want to repel just as many people as you want to attract, because the wrong fits will never be fun to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been noticing that with the show because for me, very little is woo-woo. I'm just so way out there that, people talk about all sorts of things on the show, but I know that for other people, they definitely have their uncomfortable areas. And so, it's interesting to kind of see when people unsubscribe with certain topics. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then also I was thinking, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. So what happens, because you're saying other people defining your success for you. So going back to the whole concept of money, right? And say you're a struggling entrepreneur, struggling artist or whatever, and say your parents are old school. And so they are expecting the money. And that's how they perceive success. So obviously you can't just say, bye, see you, get out of my life. Yeah. So people like that are in your circle of influence, how do you kind of put boundaries on that when they have a pretty strong influence in your life?
Sure. Yeah, it's a tough challenge all of us face. And I think it's really about standing in your power. And it's about just being very clear about what you want in life, what alignment is to you, and then communicating it clearly. And I've found this to be true so many cases. I have this internal fear of, somebody judging me and looking at the lifestyle I lead the wrong way, somebody really important, close to my life, maybe a family member. And I realized that I'm just not being strong or authentic enough to them. I'm so scared of what they think that I'm, bowing myself down. And this really speaks to that whole people pleaser comment. Yeah. I'm really shrinking. And when I just stand up and say, yeah, this is my life, this is what I do, people usually just take it at face value, because we are all trained to distrust disingenuity. But when it's authentic, that's it. I mean, we can feel the vibration, and that's great, and we're okay with it.
And that's so true, because you look at, people have their products and services at so many different price points, and you can have the same product with two different people selling it at a different price point. Say a really low amount, say like $100, and then someone sells a coaching session for $1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
And it's just in how declarative they are and how confident and how just cut and dry they say it that seems to really resonate for others, and whether they're going to pay that or not.
Absolutely. I mean, the bottom line, as we both know, is it's all energy. That's all anything is energy. And if we can stand in our energy really strongly, people will resonate with it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. 2 more. And these are great. So number 11 is be open to whatever comes along. And so I really love this one because, we're at the end. We're really close to creating our level of success. We've done all these steps and we've made it this far on the journey. And then we recognize that what's coming into our life isn't what we expected it to be. And there comes a point where your expectations and your guidelines just start holding you back. And, this was the case with me in my relationship with my boyfriend, Garrett, that, I was interested in women, I was dating women. I really expected to have a wife, and a man came along and, it wasn't even sexual. It was just a loving relationship. And I was about to turn it down because I thought, this isn't for me. This isn't what I wanted. And then I realized, how many people find a great love, and why would I just shoot that in the face because it wasn't in the form that I expected? And I think so often we do this. We're great at pushing and creating, and then it's the receiving aspect we have trouble with because we want it to be in the form that we expect it to be.
Yes.
And I think this comes up all the time. We just talked about you want one-on-one coaching, and maybe a course is more your style, and things keep coming up giving you guidance that a course is for you, but you are just so persistent on the one-on-one coaching.
Right.
And so all across the board, it's about just letting go and letting success come to you, instead of being in that control seat so much.
Boy, that's a tough one.
It's a tough one, yeah. Believe me, it's a tough one. But it's an important one, I think,
yes.
Because I used to take a lot of road trips, and I talk about this in the book. I used to always take road trips. Never once did I get there in the direction I thought I was going. And the best part of the road trip always was actually on the road. It was never the destination.
No.
And so what I found from that is that when you have this plan, and it's great, because we want to know what success is so we can drive there. But at some point, it's just holding us back from experiencing the moments of life. And when we are just open to, I'm in the mood to stop at this random bookstore. I'm in the mood to go get lunch. We can embrace life in each and every moment and the success that is inherent in each moment. Because, like we said before, it's not achievement to achievement. It's moment to moment. And we really need to tune into what is the most successful thing I can do right now.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go to relationships on this one.
Let's do it.
Yes, because that, there's that really strong emotional attachment and attachment to the outcome. Say you're with someone and you have these feelings for them, so you want them to be the one. I know that with my coaching with the ladies, this comes up a lot. And so they're trying to control that outcome. So how in the heck do you do this? How do you kind of just go with the flow and allow things to happen and you know what I'm saying? It's like...
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, not easily, basically, is the short answer.
Oh, okay.
I think that it's a lot of, touch and go. And it's really, at least in my own particular situation, it's number one about standing in your authenticity and just being clear about your feelings and about what you feel, but giving the person permission to have their own feelings as well. So, if you want to attract, this partner and you're hanging out and you just say, listen, I really enjoy spending time together. I love this. This is where I'm seeing this going. This is what I would like. And then stepping back and really putting the ball in their court. Yeah. And I think this is where we all struggle with our business, with our relationship, where we want to keep that ball in that court. We want to keep the power because we're terrified of what's going to happen when we let go.
Yes.
But if we're serious about building the business of our dreams, if we're serious about having the love of our lives, then we have to empower them and give them permission to also speak their truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can see how it ties back into step number 2, which is about the fear.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, using that as a guide and saying, you know what, I'm feeling really, really uncomfortable, allowing, like you say, handing the ball to the other person and letting go of control. And so, yeah, it just all perfectly works together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, the last step.
The last step.
So I already told you the story about when I was dancing and Garrett came in and I realized I was successful, and that really epitomizes the last step, which is you've already reached the destination. Today you are as successful as you will ever be. I like to think about seeds. Seeds have all the intelligence, anything they'll ever produce. They have every apple they will ever make right inside that seed. Mm-hmm. So inherent in you right now today is enough already. It has everything you will ever be. You will never be more than you are in this moment. And now on an outside level, you may be the next Oprah. I don't know. Or you may be really poor in the ditch. But you have already reached the destination of where you want to be. There's no milestone that's going to magically change your life, despite the fact that we all want to believe this fantasy. And so it's really about allowing yourself to enjoy the success. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, if you want to have a fancy dinner in Paris, maybe you can't get on a jet, but you can turn your living room into Paris and you and your loved one have a beautiful dinner. Or maybe you want to, go to a spa and you can't really afford it. Get on Groupon and get some cheap massages. I mean, there are infinite ways, especially in our culture today with the internet and so many innovative new things. There are so many ways for us to all create success right now and to really feel like that successful person. And because we both know law of attraction, if you do that and if you feel like the absolute success you want to be, you're already there.
Yes.
I tell people, if you eat, drink, sleep, talk to people, work, and let others treat you like a successful person does, guess what? You are successful. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what a successful person is. Mm-hmm. So it's about acting the way that you want to become.
Yeah. Love it. Ooh.
Yes.
Woohoo. All right. Okay, so I always like to finish off with a practical tip. So I know you've just given so much juicy info here, but what's one practical tip that the listeners can start using right away to help them create success?
Yeah, so I think the one practical tip is that when you define success for yourself, it's not completely foreign. It's actually quite natural. Success always feels natural to us because we have successful situations already in our lives. Maybe we have a relationship that's working really well. Maybe our business is. Maybe we just have one client we love. Look at that situation and notice how you feel. Notice what you do. That's success. Your definition of success is somewhere inherent in there. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't need to be this really complicated process to define it. It can just be looking at what's already successful in your life and then modeling that with everything else that you do and really living that, because we know what alignment feels like. So live it in every aspect of your life.
Cool. Yes. Rinse and repeat.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, you guys can find out more information about Mike at his coaching website, bostonwellnesscoach.com, which features his popular weekday success blog, his one-on-one programs, and more information about his book. So you can get your copy of Enough Already on his site, and I'll also have a link to his book on my site as well. So thanks, Mike, for joining me today. This was so much fun, this great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast, and I hope it was helpful for you and your readers.
Now I'd love to hear from you guys. The most awesome discussions happen after the show over at theawakenedgoddess.com. So get yourself over there and leave a comment right now. Did you enjoy this episode? If so, subscribe to the show. And of course, it would be amazing if you shared this with all of your friends. And if you want even more incredible resources, come on over to theawakenedgoddess.com and sign up for email updates. And until next time, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Awakened Goddess. I hope you enjoyed today's show and took away something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at thegoddessnextdoor.com. and discover wisdom that'll change your life.